Back in the day, or rather, all my life, I've always been a massive fan of horror. Zombies too, but that's a topic for another day. Silent Hill, Halloween, Obscure, Clock Tower, Hostel, and August Underground. I've been into horror since before my age reached 2 digits. As such, when the 2010s arrived and with it, a continuous stream of horror masterpieces, shit's been pretty swell since then. Slenderman the 8 Pages, Teletubbies, IV, Amnesia, Mad Father, I'm Scared. Every couple of years seem to bring up a new dev, a new game, a new trend, or something spooky to fuss about. Much hasn't changed in that aspect. Of course, if you're a real badass, you don't just stick with what's popular, right? Why play Amnesia when you can play Sad Satan? No bro, really, this one is the real one bro, I promise you bro. Why play Yumeniki when you can play Amatoria? Why play Cry of Fear when you can play Grey? The more obscure, the better. The lower the view count, the stranger the title, the more morbid the themes, the more explicit the imagery, the more attractive, right? Sometimes less is more, sure, but when it comes to a splatter fan like me, screamers, gore, all manner of excessively gross visuals, to me at least, are just garnish on top. Which is why, somewhere in between watching a gameplay of fun and buzzsaw bloodbath, I came across this game. She Is Yours. A fairly simple game, but if horror depended on deep mechanics and dynamic gameplay, Amnesia would have had a style meter and combos, right? You've got this girl, and she's yours. You can do anything you want within the bounds of the game. You can kiss her, bite her, spank her, so on and so forth. It's more of a vehicle for a message than anything else really. Maybe I'm stretching things out a little, but you know what this reminds me of? Meet and fuck. You've got this girl, you choose what you wanna do to her, and then you do it to her. It's not explicit, of course, you're just clicking her while she moans and a little meter fills up. Thing is, when you're done with that, the game will ask you, you satisfied? You done here? Things get morbid really fast. The more you toy with her, the more you play and touch her, the worse she becomes. Cuts, bruises, eventually she becomes mutilated. The visual fidelity is low, by which I mean this isn't realistic or drawn in a particularly scary way, it's a really simple drawing, but if you ask me, that just makes it scarier, no? Like, in my imagination, this could be the rough attempt of a psychopath to express what he truly wants to do. Luckily for women all over the world, this isn't the case. I believe this game is more so a statement on the objectification of women, I think, maybe. But this is just one of the many things that the developer behind it, Selfish Dream, has to say. Adequately named Anti-Games during an interview held by Canadian multimedia artist Frederick Mayhew, much of Selfish Dream's library, especially his earlier work, isn't so much about gameplay, beating a level or getting to the ending. Even though they do have endings, they're experiences that he put together for you, for me, for us to take a look at. And so how about we skip the fancy talk and take a look, yeah?
We'll get back to this later, but I wanted to ask, as somebody who makes games, do you consider what you're doing as labor? Or is it for something more like personal expression, more therapeutic, more emancipatory?
Well, technically speaking, I'm not getting paid for it, so I wouldn't say it's work or labor, but the terminology isn't really important. I would say, at least in the past, that it was definitely a personal experience, very focused on personal expression nowadays. It's not so much about my feelings, but more so my ideas. So it's definitely an expression throughout. It's just the thing that is being expressed that has changed. So it's like I just want to rephrase that and make sure I understand.
Intense shit, huh? Not a game, even less so than She Is Yours. A self-reflecting experience that heavily implies themes that I'm sure you caught on to. Depression, ennui, feelings of hopelessness, a lack of belonging, or perhaps a capacity to belong at all. Feelings that I, at least, in a personal level, can heavily relate to. Cynicism, the cynicism of youth, the desperation and hopelessness of a young person who doesn't see anything good coming their way. Believing so hard, it becomes knowing that things can only go downhill. Pfft, why bother, right? Why stick to it when it's all ever been downhill? Why complain when there's people that suffer twice, thrice, 4 times as much as you?
So your games, in a way, are, let's say, your ideas are your philosophy about life versus a specific subject matter. There's this term we call reify, to materialize or to communicate those abstract ideas through a concrete object that people can experience.
Right, yes. In the past, it was my feelings that I was trying to, materialize. Now it's more my way of thinking, my thoughts, ideas, and so forth.
Hard to misinterpret, isn't it? This is why I decided to make this video in the first place. Even if it does feel somewhat voyeuristic to shine a spotlight on something like this, there's clearly some artistic value to be found in Selfish Dreams' works. This could be called a direct sequel to Personal. Depression, hopelessness, and boredom with life itself. This is an obvious evolution of such thoughts, right? Deep sadness can easily turn into hatred. Hatred of others and yourself. Why don't you understand me? Why can't you understand me? Why does it feel humiliating to express myself to you? Would it even be worth the risk? Suicide is commonly explained as a way for the person to exert control in what they feel is otherwise an uncontrollable life that they live, to flex their capacity of choice by denying the world itself the capacity to keep hurting them. But then, after death, people are left with little to understand you with. Throwaway lines with which to brush you aside. Too bad you're not around to tell them this is the type of shit that made you do it in the first place, right?
To every creator I talked with, they never used the same title. So how would you call your game creating practice? Do you consider yourself a game designer or an artist?
It's kinda hard because there are elements from every category. Even though I'm making more subversive, more experimental thing, there's still elements of the game design that I have to incorporate to construct a specific experience for the player. I'd say developer above all else because I think it encompasses all those elements of game design and art, and that's really the most important thing, trying to balance and mix both of those things. Because if you have too much art, so to say, it's more of an experience than a game, and that might irk some people. But if you have too much design, then it's something formulaic. So it's important to mix and balance.
pillars have risen within your soul. Would it be a stretch to say that these pillars are of hatred, of resentment, of being pushed so deeply into despair that rather than becoming lethargically depressed, you become actively malicious? After all, if suicide is a way to take control of a life that feels off the rails, well, taking someone else's life is just about the next best thing, right? Hatred, self-hatred, hatred of others, violence and resentment so intense it might feel like it becomes a physical presence in your anatomy, as present as blood, bones and oxygen. A constant pushing and pressing in your brain which locks you internally. In your mind, normal people don't feel like this. Regular people can't feel like this. You're not regular. If this is what not being regular feels like, then you must be evil, right? Well, life can truly be disappointing at times.
That's interesting. And what are those ideas you want to project for your games?
Well, in the past, most of my games were coming from a place of very negative feelings. Depression and general sadness and oppression and anger and all that stuff. Nowadays it's more of my worries about certain stuff. For example, Eyes was about certain worries that I have about being watched, certain psychological effects that may exist in media. I hope I'm not being too schizophrenic about that.
Objectification. She is yours, at least to me, already dealt with objectification and the dehumanization of the female figure. Skin seems like a spiritual sequel, but where She is Yours asked you to do your worst, framing it as your own pleasure, or rather the imaginary perpetrator you're playing as, Skin seems to be about objectification, not for sexual pleasure, but as a systematized process of sorts. Think of it as playing as a porn addict rather than a womanizing sadist. You want a perfect woman, and with every interaction you have with one, there seems to be a sense of reducing her, of hurting her even though she is moaning, of touching her while, in so many words that you can't even recognize a single one, you despise her. Words like murder, mutilate, fetish, beautiful, kiss, grope, kill, overcome. These words bury her with the expectations of what the protagonist wants her to be and wants to get out of her. Sexuality, if we were to consider it a tool, can be as magnificent and capable of bringing joy as it is of overwhelmingly destroying a person, psychologically and physically. This process repeats until there's really not much of a woman left, just a vague shape that's supposed to be one for you to marvel at, since your desires have taken you this far. No longer a female shape, no longer any curves or naturality to it, no face, no hands, no feet, just a silhouette that you can vaguely recognize as what once was. The implication of the act isn't as defined as in she is yours, but even if metaphorically, the end result is the same. Nothing left to objectify, only proof of what objectification can do.
Do you feel that video games can, in and of itself, be a carrier of a sacred experience? Because we always, the sacred in the music. Do you feel that new games can have that possibility also?
Oh, definitely. There's been many games that I've played that made me feel very strong emotions, feel happy or feel sad, or make me think about a lot of different things. They could definitely be a very transcendental experience. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly.
Deimos, you think that you know me, but you do not. You think that you see me, but you cannot. You think that you hear me, but you will not. You think that you love me, but you do not. I am Deimos, and I will never die. I am Deimos. I am the ever-present. I am all that is combined in the things you fear most, and I hold them for you, and that is my love. My love contains the multitudes. My love is my purpose, because I am Deimos. You think you understand my threats, but you do not. You think that I am silent and sullied and uncertain, but I am not. I am Deimos. You think you know me. I am Deimos. I know everyone. I am Deimos, and I am a cloud that hangs in the ether. It is so beautiful that seems to contain the multitudes of all the love that is, because it understands all the hate that was. I am Deimos. I do for you what you cannot. I am Deimos, and I am tired. I am Deimos, and I am sad. I am Deimos, and I cannot be this Deimos without my brother. You think that you love me, but you do not. And I will never die in the things you fear most. And I hold them for you. And that is my love. My love is my purpose.
Before I was a Christian. Before I was a Christian. Before I was a Christian. That was about Tiki Tom Unit, the stabidest day afloat in society's leaky boat. Stabidest day afloat in society's leaky boat. Boom, boom, boom. Further away from God and more into Satan's lies. That's how Satan works. That's how Satan works. That's how Satan works. Before I was a Christian. Before I was a Christian.
For this one, I'm gonna give you an example of my own. As you might know, I make Stalcraft videos, and in Stalcraft, as you do, I was wandering around doing quests or whatever. This was very late at night, and I was extremely sleepy. Suddenly, another player approached me and DM'd me. He said something to the effect of, "Nice username." This was one of my alts, and I don't really play with anyone. I replied with something like, "You say that to everyone you meet?" You know, trying to be witty. And this freak replied with a Bible verse. Don't even remember which one, but he just said something spiritual and walked away. He didn't run away, his avatar walked. To you this might seem like a huge nothing burger, but to me, in that moment, home alone, middle of the night, pitch black with nothing but my PCs humming to keep me company, I thought I was about to get fucking murdered. I believe that Ice is something similar to that feeling, to that experience, to be interacted with in such a manner with such confidence, as though you know something that I don't, as though you know me and what'll happen next and I just get to twiddle my thumbs, wondering what the fuck that was about. Ice, to me at least, is about social confusion and the hypervigilance that follows, to try and be one step ahead of a person that probably just felt like being weird to you for fun.
I thought that your work was very relevant because there is a strong use of anti-games approach and a strong use of noise and glitch with your aesthetic.
Yeah, my older games, not much from my recent ones.
Your recent ones are more arcade-oriented, which I thought was very interesting, and I'll get back to that. But then you release Ice, and that was more like a return to form from your earlier games.
Yeah, it's true.
Now, I'm actually cheating a little with this one, since chronologically, this was released on October 19, 2022, but I thought it was worth being placed here as a bit of a midpoint. Why? Well, because it's not really a scary game at all. It's kind of a pixelated Diablo-style game, in which you, a wizard who was betrayed by the leader of their order to make dealings with the demons, must now attack that Magi's sanctuary, from which the demonic scourge stems from, hopefully closing the Gate of Shadows, the source of corruption. It's a fairly polished, if simple game. You've got your health, mana, and EXP, walking through levels and killing enemies to level up and gain new, more flashy powers that do more damage. Standard fare stuff. You might think that this game is gonna pull some sort of bait and switch and suddenly turn scary, but it's just a cool little grimdark thing. I like that. One thing I like about Selfish Dream is that he makes games in earnest. A lesser interloper might go ahead and say then, oh, what a shame, why didn't he stick to making real games, unlike She Is Yours, which is so problematic and disturbing. But I say that this proves that had he wanted to, Selfish Dream could have pumped out game after game. He knew how to make something more accessible, more playable, more fun in a sense. Yet he preferred these experiences, the disturbing, the inaccessible, and that, to me at least, has plenty more merit.
Do you feel the term video game is still adequate or too limiting for more experimental forms of games? Like, do we need a new term to define that?
I don't think we need a new term per se, because we have our media, such as books or paintings or movies, that have managed to become like very transcendental experiences and are still called what they are called: movies, books, whatever. So I don't think terminologies are very important. I think the meaning of its creation is much more important. Terminologies are more for people that like to categorize stuff, like the filter stuff, and get off on that sort of thing.
What has come to light is that it's now been, it is not so surprising for a lot of people that there are covens amongst the very educated class: architects, doctors, lawyers, priests, brokers, and the leisure class. And they lead perfectly normal lives. They're jewel merchants, they travel, they're prominent in their own way, but they
Your games deal with very uncomfortable subject matter. There's mental health, domestic violence, depression. Your early game was really about, expressing feelings. Now it's more about ideas. What do you feel makes video games an efficient medium to communicate those themes?
I'd say interactivity above everything else. Although I'd say it's a double-edged sword because interactivity is a very powerful tool. Because through the actions of the player, they can get very immersed and feel what you're trying to convey and so on. But on the other hand, I have found out, for myself at least, that for some people to be truly immersed in something that talks about personal experiences and so on, they have to have some personal connection to it as well. If someone who has never been depressed or is always happy or everything has gone right in their lives or whatever, plays a game that is about depression, I think they're going to find it stupid. It's like the classic thing people say, why be stressed, just stop stressing out or stop being sad. Yeah, you have to come from that place to understand the message and what it's trying to convey too.
Well, the question is that in the description of certain of your games are very cryptic, so I was wondering if you wanted to limit access to your game, like, if you're looking for something more traditional, don't look here.
No, it wasn't about that at all. It's more of a how to say something without saying it. Because I think when you try to hide something under a certain layer, it invites a person that is interested to look into it further. And by looking at it further, it becomes more meaningful, so to say. And I think it improves the methods of a game. For example, if you have text in the game, I'm sad, and you just blurt it out, it will feel silly. It will feel crazy to say because it's so out there, it's so in your face. When you obscure it, I think it adds an extra layer of mystery, and I think it becomes more compelling that way. And it's also a fun little thing for people who like, ARG and digging stuff up.
And with that, at least for now, the library of selfish dreams indie gaming experiences ends. I do hope that it's not the absolute end, and even if it is, I do hope he feels at least satisfied with the work he put out. I really hope that, even if you're not the type to play horror games, you'll give his library a try. I could have easily just went through each and every single one of his games, did a full playthrough explaining each and every single bit and bob of anything that might be interesting, throwing out interpretations like they're candy, and made this a 4-hour video essay. And while I'm sure a lot of people would have been ecstatic at this, I think that it'd be a disservice to what I'm trying to get at. Engage with scary media yourself. There's a lot of cool, scary, even fun arcadey type shit here to check out there. Where's the fun in having everything told to you? Everything handed and spoon-fed with some lame-ass boys constantly telling you why something is scary. Why is this cool? Why is this interesting? Come on, man, live a little, dip your toes. These aren't exactly AAA games, so it's not like you need a NASA computer. Stop being a little wuss and dare to experience things rather than just watching video essays. Come on, man, I swear, you'll be much better off for it. But getting back on track, given enough time, you can clearly see the evolution of Selfish Dream's abilities, the themes he explores, what he wants to do, and eventually his farewell from the medium. Not that you asked for my perspective, but if you had done so, I would say that same way that I make videos to express myself, same way that someone might write a song or a story or a poem, same way you might sometimes feel the need to hum a little song, I feel as though Selfish Dreams found a way to express his feelings and thoughts in the experiences that he made. This, I think, is where the beauty of his work stems from. One thing is to feel something, but to feel it so strongly, so passionately, so dedicatedly as to express it in the shape of a game. A market full of find my pages, check the cameras, and analog horror. He simply preferred doing what felt right for whatever vision he had for his next project, going his own way, expressing what he felt was worth expressing in the ways he thought would resonate the hardest. Or maybe just in a way that he felt satisfied with, cutting the viewer out altogether. There's a level of courage needed to do that, to create art without caring for the appeal or attracting masses, for creating an experience that not only steers from what's orthodox, but also seems to downright avoid being accessible. It's enviable. To me, at least. This is why whenever people talk about modern horror game devs, about Kitty Horror Show, Puppet Combo, Chilla's Art, and all of these devs that have become so famous, I always like to put Selfish Dreams up there. And I think that if you gave his games a chance, you would too. If not for the themes that he explores, then at least in the most worldly of senses, simply because playing a scary game is fun from time to time.
Personally, I'm not somebody who suffers from depression, but by playing Recluse, personally, it made me feel a certain way that I think could create a certain empathy to understand, like, what could depression could be like to live through. Is that the object of the type of game that you're making, in that sense?
Funnily enough, Recluse wasn't just my idea. It was also the idea of one of my coworkers from a previous job I had, so kudos to him as well. If you have some sort of empathy, you will understand the point of the game. Above all else, I was making these games to express my feelings at the time.
If we are talking about Recluse, for example, when you made that game, did you have a preoccupation that this would be understood by other people? What I mean is that, like, by making games, you know, you're always revisiting the same stuff by fixing and improving on things. You said you had those dark feelings that you projected in the game. Was there a therapeutic aspect? Did you understand something about yourself? Or was there preoccupation about people playing the games, or was it more for you?
On one hand, it was therapeutic because I was expressing those negative feelings I had with some sort of exorcising my demons, but on the other hand, it was something that was leeching off of me, because those games were liked by people, and so I felt compelled to make more games that were about such negative feelings I had. And that made me pressure myself to be more negative, so to say, like to draw more of my negative side, and that's why I've stopped making these kinds of games, because I felt like I was trying to make myself more depressed, for instance, just so I can use that energy to make a game. And that's why you can't have the very gamey game. I think it would be kind of weird if you were talking about depression and you were making an RPG out of it. Not that it can't work, but for me, I think it's weird too. Trying to immerse yourself in a certain way of feeling and thinking, and on the other hand, you're trying to think like a gamer, like, I'm going to equip one of my best stats and all that.
So the feeling you're pushing out is what guides the game mechanics, basically.
Well, yeah, if you're talking about personal stuff and the experimental stuff, and that's the focal point of the game. It's not so much about game design in the traditional sense, like how long the level is going to be, or how many enemies, or what it's about. Everything that you place must convey certain feelings. And yeah, it's the feelings that guide the whole process, and how can I make the player feel a certain way.